Before flying under Instrument Flight Rules, also called IFR, in controlled airspace, the pilot in command is required to do two things. First, file an IFR flight plan, and second, receive an IFR clearance from air traffic control. These two steps are essential. You cannot legally or safely fly IFR in controlled airspace without doing both. IFR flight is different from VFR or visual flight rules because you are flying mostly by instruments, especially in clouds, poor visibility, or at high altitudes where ATC handles the traffic. So, a flight plan is your way of letting the FAA and ATC know who you are, where you're going, how you plan to get there, what altitude you'll fly at, what kind of plane you're flying, and what kind of navigation and communication equipment you have on board. The flight plan acts like a reservation on a busy highway in the sky. It lets ATC know your intended route so they can manage you with other traffic. You should file this plan at least 30 minutes before your estimated departure time. This gives the system and controllers enough time to check your route, make adjustments if needed, and have your clearance ready by the time you call for taxi. Filing late might mean sitting on the ramp waiting for clearance, which delays you and everyone else. To file the plan, you use a flight service station, also known as an FSS. You can file your IFR flight plan in several ways. By calling 1-800-WX-BRIEF, using an online flight planning tool like Leidos, ForeFlight, or Garmin Pilot, or through an aviation app. In some cases, you can also file by radio, but that's typically slower. Now, what if you forget to file before takeoff, or maybe you departed VFR but need to go IFR while airborne? You can still get into the IFR system, but there's a process. First, contact the nearest flight service station while still flying under VFR conditions. Ask them to file an IFR flight plan on your behalf. Then, and this is critical, you must stay VFR until ATC gives you an IFR clearance. You are not allowed to enter clouds or instrument meteorological conditions, or IMC, until you are officially cleared. When you file your plan, there are two possible forms to use. The FAA prefers the newer and more complete FAA Form 7233-4. This is called the International Flight Plan Form, but don't let that name confuse you. It is used for both international and domestic flights, whether IFR or VFR. It's the default form now and the one you'll be expected to know for your FAA knowledge test. You can learn how to complete it by reviewing paragraph 519 in the Aeronautical Information Manual, also called the AIM. The other form is FAA Form 7233-1, which is the older domestic-only form. It is still legal to use for IFR flights that stay entirely within the U.S., but it comes with a big drawback. If you use this older form, you may not be eligible for assignment of important procedures, including RAVs, routes assigned in advance, SIDs, standard instrument departures, and STARS, standard terminal arrival routes. These procedures help structure and streamline air traffic. Without them, your flight might take longer or require more ATC instructions. So unless you have a specific reason to use the old form, it's better to use the updated FAA 72334. One more thing to know. If you're in the middle of your flight and decide to divert to your alternate airport, maybe because the weather got worse or the runway at your destination is unavailable, your alternate now becomes your new destination. From that point forward, you must follow the approach procedures and landing minimums that are published for that airport. You are expected to review those alternate approach plates during pre-flight so that if you ever need them, you're ready. To sum it all up clearly, you cannot fly IFR without filing a flight plan and getting a clearance. File at least 30 minutes ahead of time to avoid delays. Use FAA Form 7233-4 unless you're staying fully domestic and have a reason not to. File your plan with FSS using phone, online tools, or apps. If you're airborne and need to file, contact the nearest FSS, stay VFR, and wait for your clearance. And if you go to your alternate, follow the minimums and procedures for that new destination. These are the fundamentals of IFR flight planning, and mastering them will make you safer, more professional, and fully prepared for the knowledge exam and real-world flying.